Hi, and welcome to the Ballyhoobridge podcast. I'm your host, Heather, and I'm so glad you're here because I have a question for you. Do you ever feel stuck? Do you find yourself struggling to take the next steps in your business or even your life? Figuring out your next steps and having the courage to actually take them is the beginning of a road to self-discovery and healing. It's a journey that's uniquely yours that will uncover who you really are and help you show up as your true, authentic self, not only in life, but in business. In this podcast, we'll talk about marketing and business and spirituality and mindset. We're breaking it all down so you can build the life you truly desire and deserve. We're going to explain the jargon, clear up some misconceptions, and discover we're not all so different. We'll bridge the gaps between what you think you know and what you think you don't. Let's dive in. So hi guys, today we're going to do things a little bit differently than we have in the past because I have a very special guest with me today. My beautiful friend Marie is here, and we are going to talk about really lots of things. We met a couple years ago on a cohort through a class that we were both taking. And there's a group of ladies that got together as an accountability group, and we actually still meet every other week. We have a call and we catch up and we support each other and do all those things. And throughout this time that we've gotten to know each other, I've discovered that our journeys have actually been fairly similar, but for very different reasons. Mine spiritual, Marie's has been somewhat different. And I want you to talk about that today. Hey, Marie.
Hi, Heather, and hello to Heather's listeners. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on. I'm so excited to talk about this. So, do you find that our journeys, because when we talk in the group, a lot of things you say just really resonate with me because I'm like, that's the stuff we talk about or I talk about with my coaches or are in this sort of spiritual world. It's so similar. Do you
Yeah,
find it's just very similar?
very much so. And I think what we're both learning is to trust our our true selves. I think that's the journey we've been on. It's we've been learning to discard what other people are saying we are or think we are or want us to be, and really getting down to the nitty gritty of who is Heather and who is Marie, and that takes a an intentional journey, and I think that's the common journey we've been on.
I agree. I agree with that completely. And it seems like I've had a lot of sort of epiphanies the past few days. I haven't even talked to you about these. We'll have to talk about those later. But I've just had a lot of things happen over the past couple of weeks that have made me feel so aligned and so where I'm supposed to be. But if I hadn't been on this journey the past couple of years, I don't know that I could have even heard what was trying to be told to me. I don't think I could have gotten the lesson because I had to go through sort of the trials first. Have you found that to be similar in your
Yes,
life?
in fact, the last 6 months, 4 to 6 months, I would say, of my life have shifted so many things, and I totally agree that had I not been on the journey of finding my voice and being able to hear it and being able to sit still and hear the divine, I would not have had these major shifts. It's all been leading up to this, I feel, and will continue. This is an ongoing journey. I don't think I'll ever stop, ever. Even after I pass, I believe my spirit will continue to learn. And I I am so grateful that I can now hear what my true self knows to be good and right for me and what the divine is leading me to.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's so true. So do you want to share a little bit? I've talked on the podcast a little bit about how my journey has been going and kind of why I started this whole spiritual thing and that I'm on this almost new path of discovery of what does it really mean and where am I going now. But would you like to share a little bit about why you started your journey and what's going on with you?
Yes. I have always had a strong desire to learn to connect with the divine. I have always had that, but there were many things in my way that caused me to not be congruent or integral with myself. And on June 20th of 2019, I decided to be sober, to live in recovery from I was a drug addict and an alcoholic for most of my life, and I'm 50 now. So at 47, I altered the course of my life by choosing differently and went through treatment, 60 days of treatment, and have been on that journey ever since. I also suffer from schizoaffective disorder, which is schizophrenia with a mood disorder. And there is a recovery life in mental illness also. And the key to both of those recoveries is my connection to the divine and my integrity with myself and not BSing myself, basically. And that's why I've so intensely been on the journey for a little over 3 years now, and been able to open up to hearing the divine and to actually honestly validating myself and my own experiences, my own feelings, and trusting myself again. Well, actually, for
Wow.
the first time in my life, because to be quite honest, I started being an active alcoholic in sixth grade. So,
Oh my gosh. So it really has been all of your life.
yes,
Wow. And by the way, you guys, Marie has a podcast as well, and she has talked about her journey on her podcast, and it is quite a journey, and it's lovely. And I congratulations again on 3 years of sobriety. That's amazing
thank you.
to come that far, and then to have sort of the mental health thing on top of that. Wow, that really is two
Yes,
journeys. That is.
yes, it is. And the answer to both is a strong spiritual life.
So, did you have that connection to a spiritual life and to the divine before that?
Uh, I I did, and I didn't realize how much lying to myself disconnected me from my relationship with the divine. So I was raised Catholic.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 7 kids, um, and we were raised very conservatively Catholic. My dad is a convert, which means he was not a Catholic his whole life. He became a Catholic in his 20s, which, if anybody's ever met a convert to anything, they're the most zealot and most intense about it. So, my parents literally say the rosary and go to mass every day. Every day. Yes.
Wow.
And so that's how intense my Catholicism upbringing was. And I went through 12 years of Catholic school. I love the spiritual side of Catholicism. It's really intense. I did a lot of learning as a young adult about my faith, or about that faith, let me put it that way. And I still feel very connected to it. I just also feel that my God is bigger than any one religion. So I have a sentimental and an appreciation connection to Catholicism, but I don't dictate my relationship with God through its confines. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, at least to me, because I've had those same things over the past few years to some degree. I mean, I was raised a Christian. I mean, I went to Methodist church all my life, and my husband is actually Catholic and has a disconnect with the church. I think
Mm.
his family, when you're young, you tend to be, I hate to say forced because that's that's an awful way to say it because your parents mean well, but they sort of make you go to church and they want you to, I think, to have that foundation in in your life, but he had kind of a big disconnect with the church because he felt, in his mind there were some hypocrisies there that he was kind of, well, that doesn't really add up. Why do you do that and I can't, and those kinds of things. And of course I was raised a Christian. I converted him to being Methodist. He would come to church with me. Um, but we had sort of some issues that happened within our church. And I guess I struggle with that because I love the people. I love that church, but I struggle with sort of the church part, and I have for a while. But I don't, it's not the religion, it's not my relationship with God. It's I don't know, fallible men maybe.
It's humanity, and every church, every religion has the fallibility of humanity.
Right. Because there's I'm listening to another podcast called The Firm that's about the British monarchy. One of the things they talked about was the different times that religion has come into play with the ruling family, and with, well, they wanted Catholicism at the forefront, and then other times, well, the Protestants were more in power, and just the fact that through all of that there were political agendas that ended up being connected to the religion. And so I think that's where I start having issues or concerns or challenges, really, that but there's all these agendas and I just want the relationship. And
Right.
the truth is, once I started more into the spiritual journey, I feel closer to God than I've ever felt. And I know when you said, you feel like God is bigger, I I've been shown things. I've asked for things that I've been shown that yeah, he's bigger than all of it, more than we can really. I don't know that we can humanly wrap our mind around what it
Yes.
truly means, you know.
I completely agree with that. And just really quick to address the whole religion political agenda thing. We have to remember we're in 2022. 2022 is the most enlightened age in terms of the broad acceptance of spirituality, and I say that in air quotes, the broad acceptance of consideration of peace and love among men. I don't think we're doing that great of a job with it on across the board in on the earth, but have access to more than any of my relatives prior to me in terms of many paths that I could choose to have help me. Mental health professionals, different spiritualities that, I mean, at my fingertips, I can learn about, experience, that sort of thing. And when we look back, like, because my parents are 40 and 42 years older than I am. So they were born in 1930 and 1932. I was born in 1972. That is a dramatic difference. So when I look at them, I try to look at them through the eyes of growing up in that arena. I don't excuse behaviors or attitudes or anything because of that, but I certainly lend them grace because of that. And I have to do that with the early churches as well. Not because it's okay to be political and ram, Catholicism or Protestantism or whatever down people's throats and kill them because they're not accepting it. But the truth is, it was a different time, and my relationship with my faith, whatever I choose it to be, it is slightly tainted. The Catholic Church is very tainted by its crusades and all that. But I'm not going to write off their doctrine that I connect to because of men's stupidity and craving of power. So that is really important for me in my faith and in my journey. That doesn't mean that that resonates for everyone, but that's what I do. Also, I am in awe at the miracles that I experience all the time in my life and how big God is. In fact, I used to say that my job, and I still believe it, but it used to be like kind of my motto in life, that there are miracles everywhere. I just need to learn how to see them.
That's very true. And that's actually a really good way to put it as far as you're right, that, you know, times change and you live in the times that you live in and you have to work within those parameters a lot of times. But you're right, the spirituality and the opportunities and the openness and the ability to find different avenues is more prevalent than it's ever been. And you're right, pouring grace on the table. It's true. It's and I think that's where part of my struggle comes in is, trying to sort of decipher and reconcile all that and find where my truth is. Cause I do agree about the doctrines. I mean, the Methodist church that I'm a part of was started by John Wesley. And that was what they did. They went out, the preachers went out on horseback and went to the different communities and they met once a week to hold each other accountable. And so
That
their
is
thing was mission driven. It was to bring the gospel to the people in everywhere. And then, like I said, they would come together, the different preachers, and they would sort of hold each other accountable as to what have you done and how it had gone and whatnot. And so that's where the Methodist church grew from. And so we're very mission driven into going out into the community or going out into underserved communities and just helping people and being there to be the hands and feet, And so, yeah, there's definitely a connection to that you don't want to just throw all that away.
You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because honestly, that, in people who we talk about don't understand what you consider to be called woo, whatever it is that you're looking into, you don't want people to write you off because they don't understand and it, air quotes, looks crazy to them. You want to be able to take the good and understand and validate that there was bad, but pass it on. Like, okay, we don't need to continue. We don't need to have that in our present day. But the beauty of that person that you mentioned that started your church, that is beautiful intention. And to honor that by still appreciating today what he tried to create, regardless of the hypocrisy that is seen today. I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. And herein lies some of the problem. There's so much
Yeah.
beauty that's there and there's so much that you want to be involved in. And like I said, trying to sort of reconcile what that means for me in my life. And, I don't want to give it up. And it's a lot of very special memories for me going to church with my mom
Yes.
and the things that I've learned and the people that I've met and beautiful people that have amazing hearts, have amazing big hearts, and that is truly what they're there for, is to be welcoming and to help anyone that they can. Yeah.
On a smaller scale, Heather, look at my family. My parents have been married for 65 years. They are 90 and almost 92. They have 7 kids that all get along, that all love each other. They have 22 grandchildren that all love each other. They have 6 great grandchildren, almost 7. In November will be 7. And it's an amazing family. And it's beautiful. And for many years in my life, didn't allow myself to get upset with my parents or validate my own neglect in a certain extent because I thought that that would be discounting the beauty. So one of the shifts that's been made for me is last year I did a podcast on being molested as a child and by a neighbor. And it's taken the last year for me to get really angry at my mom for her lack of movement, or lack of um, what I thought looked like caring, a lack of caring that had even occurred, because she knew within 2 years of it happening, she knew. I told her. So here I was, brave enough to tell someone, and nothing happened to that neighbor. And my mom to this day is friends with his mother. So I have a right to be angry about that, but it took me a long time and sobriety to see that clearly and allow myself to be angry at my parents. I still believe all the beauty about my family and about my parents, but that little 10, 11, and 12-year-old girl was not treated properly. It didn't get handled in a way that validated me. In fact, it did the opposite. And these last few months, I've allowed myself to be angry with her. And I'm now kind of coming out of that a little bit. But that was a really, I had to have faith. I had to have faith in my love for my parents to allow myself to be angry. And my faith in the love that I do have for them allowed me to validate my little girl, get angry, go through that process, and come back again. And I think a lot of times people with God don't allow that for themselves. They get angry with God, and they just shut the relationship off completely. And that that's like cutting off your nose to spite your face, you know. Um, all you're doing is harboring that negativity within your own body. You're not doing anything to God. God's still sitting there loving you, and you're feeding yourself poison by cutting yourself off that way. So it's a very similar situation, and I see it as a very similar situation. I had to have faith in the beauty of who my parents are and my family, and faith in myself, in my love for them, to be able to distance myself from them, to let the little girl be heard and seen and validated, and get angry. And then when I was done, I make my way back. And I think it's very similar to God for a lot of people.
I agree. And God is, I've always looked at God as the ultimate parent, but a parent, that's watching their child, screw up and mess up. And I told you not to do that. And then, but they're they're always there. And there's that unconditional love when you're ready to sort of accept it again. And I think there's some people that when you say you're angry with God, I've had people look at me like I have three heads. What do you mean you're angry with God? Like, you can't do that. Yes, I can. I have free will. And, you have to back up and process what's happening and figure out what you're going to do with it and how you're going to react to it. And what choice am I going to make moving forward? Am I going to hold on to the anger, or am I going to process and figure out what I need to do to grow past it and use that as the lesson or whatever it was supposed to be to become a better person?
I just think faith in the fact that the relationship will be okay.
Yeah.
Just like if I'm upset with a friend, I don't not say that to my friend. I let them know this hurt. You know, and the only way you can do that is if you have faith that the relationship's bigger than the two of you.
Yeah. That's a very good way to look at it, because it is true. And I think sometimes growing up, I don't know that I was always taught how to do that. Of course, again, it's that I think sometimes it's the my parents were older as well. My parents died a few years ago, but I think they're probably actually close to the same age yours are, or would be. And, there's a certain amount of conditioning that comes from the era that they lived in, the way they were taught to be. My dad had to be the tough guy because that's how his dad raised him. Women are just supposed to kind of be the mom, be the caregiver, be the housekeeper, be all those things. So I felt like, that's kind of where we were taught to be, work hard, do all the things. But then when it came to church and some of that, I don't know that we were taught we could, I'm not even sure how to say it, that we could think for ourselves when it came to the religion, that we could question God, that we could go to him, that we could have that, intimate one-on-one relationship with him. And I think there were a lot of people that were sort of scared to do that. And so again, like you said, having the faith, and I'm sure it was how they were taught and how they were brought up. But, and
Well,
again, to me, it's hard to reconcile that strength, the strength of God, the all being God with, but yeah, I can have a talk with
right.
him.
Well, and to this day, my dad really believes he's like the little kid in trouble with God all the time. Like that's how he sees it. And my God is more loving and bigger than that. And I choose to have a more intricate, more intimate relationship with my God. I think that my dad does not think that that's possible, but I think he doesn't think that's possible in any of his relationships, to be honest with you. Um, my dad's mother had a frontal lobotomy in his teens. So it's almost like he doesn't know how to have adult, strong adult relationships, especially with women. Um, and and I think I think he's stunted in how deep he goes knowing himself. And therefore his relationship with his God is mirrored after that, and his relationship with his children are mirrored after that. And for whatever reason, he just thinks he's in trouble all the time, which I think is so silly. But that's his relationship. So, um, but that's not mine. And I don't think he even knows how to fathom what I'm living.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I had a pastor tell me one time, I don't know, I guess I always had a certain fear, of God and sort of judgment day and all the things that they'll talk about in church. And I remember he looked me dead in the eye and he says, "There's not a scoreboard. He's not keeping score. He's not, oh, this is all the bad things and this is all the good." He's like, "That's not how this works." And I was so relieved after someone told me that. But it took me a long time to come to the point that I'm at. I really only started going through this the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm 53. So, I went a long time not understanding, but how crazy is it that we go through our lives like that, like your dad,
Yes,
but not really knowing. I don't know if you need to get out of it, because I'm not even sure you're aware that it shouldn't be that way.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, so winner, winner, chicken dinner on the nose right there. Uh, you're you're unaware. And I think this is where the relationship and knowing how to check in with your soul and your true self, this is where that is so key. And this is where I think mature relationships with God and with yourself come into play. Um, we all believe in Santa. He's got a naughty list and a nice list, and all these things. You're going to get coal in your stocking if you're not a good boy or girl. Well, if you never go beyond the elementary school version of God, then you're not having a mature relationship with him. And unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate. My dad doesn't think it's unfortunate. He thinks his relationship with God is great. And, so I don't know why I'm putting that on him, because he's pleased with his relationship. In fact, he thinks that I should have that same relationship. So I should probably not call his unfortunate, because that's what he does to me. That just dawned on me. My dad is in a perfect place for him. Um, it just is what it is. It's not going to go beyond your bad or good for him. And
Yeah.
I just believe I believe there are evil choices and you can be a mean person, But I do not believe we are born innately evil at all. I think when you hold your baby or any baby, they're pure love. And
Yeah.
I think we learn to protect ourselves, not only from the outside world, but from our own self. And that creates barriers between our soul and those we love, including the divine. And that is what I believe sin is when you cut yourself off from the ultimate source of love.
What a great way to look at that, because that feels very true. And you know what you just said about your dad too, what his relationship is perfect for him. And
Yes.
that's what's so neat about all of this, I think, and the fact that we're given free will and the ability to think for ourselves, that that's what works for him. And that's great. And I would imagine that in God's eyes, he's thinking, good job. That's awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you're here. I'm so glad, because just look at, there's 7 of y'all. I'm sure y'all all have a different relationship with your parents because
Yes.
you're all
Yeah.
different personalities and you're all different people.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and I guess that's what I think about a lot, is that what I do and what someone else does when it comes to their relationship to their spirituality, their religion, whatever it is, I've really come to understand that, oh, that's how you believe. Oh, that's great. Good for you. Are you happy? Are you at peace with that? Then by all means, is there any way I can help you? No? Okay, good. You know,
You know, not always thinking you have the answers, but learning why someone goes that route and how they see the world. That all that does is expand you. And
yes.
in that expansion, love grows, I believe. And and when people say, when you stop saying, why is this happening to me? And you say, how can I learn from this? And your life changes. I also believe on the same level that if you can say, rather than, oh, this is what I believe and this is why I believe it, and da 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 da, and you can say, well, what is your life experience, and how did you come to that? That is life altering.
Yes.
And that nothing but love and divine and light grows in that scenario.
Yeah, there's something to be said about stepping out of victim mode. Not
Yeah.
only does it help you grow, but yes, doing that, because it changes your way of thinking so much that you just start to approach everything differently. You start approaching everything with a different mindset and a more open mind.
And you stop resisting life's lessons, and you grow faster and easier. Life does not have to be a chore, a major pain. Like, there are things that we struggle in, totally. But overall, with my spirituality and how it's grown, I just know that nothing lasts forever, and that includes the highs and it includes the lows. And I know that there are angels on my side. I feel them every day. I see them working for the greater good in my life every day. Um, I have outrageous miracles that don't even make logical sense to anyone in this world in my life. One of the things, the June 19th, the night before I chose to be sober, I crashed my car.
Wow.
And I went through 4 panels of a wrought iron fence in a little Toyota Corolla and landed in a marsh. Like, I did not have my cell phone with me because I had gotten drunk the week before when I was in Georgia and left it in an Uber.
Oh my gosh.
So I couldn't stay where I was and call the police or call anyone. I had to walk to my friend's house. Then my friend went back to where my car was crashed to talk to the police and explained why I had left the scene. Of course, he didn't also share with them that I was drunk, but he
Yeah.
said, you know, she didn't have her cell phone, da da da. She came to our house. I got a $50 ticket.
Wow.
That's it.
The fact that you
That's
were alive.
I'm alive. I didn't hurt anyone. Thank God. And there's nothing on my police record. Nothing.
That is incredible. Was that the turning point that made you
Yes. I did not know that my family was planning an intervention the next morning.
so they knew?
They knew. Yeah. And when my friend whose house I walked to said, "I'm going to call your brother John. He's going to come get you." I fell to my knees and thanked her. I said, I'm so done. Thank you." And in treatment, I would recall the events of that crash, and I was like, "Marie, if you ignore the hand of God in that, then you're an idiot. Like, this is not an opportunity to waste." I think that's why relapse has not been part of my story
Yeah.
yet. And by the way, yet is not because I expect to have a relapse, but every alcoholic or addict gets taught to say yet because it's always a possibility. It's a
Yeah, reality that it could happen. I mean, you know.
exactly. So it has not been part of my story because I so clearly saw the hand of God in that whole event. And it overwhelms me, the beauty that the grace I was given to not hurt myself, not hurt someone else, all of that.
Do you ever wonder, and not to, because sometimes it's not good to speculate on things, but had it come to the point of the intervention, kind of like I was talking about the things that I've been hearing and understanding in my life lately that I would not have understood even a month ago, I would not have
Right.
grasped. Do you think if you had gone to an intervention that you would have listened and maybe made that same choice? People telling you to do it versus this
I
miracle?
would because it was on my mind, but I would not have I don't think my recovery would be as strong as it is without that accident.
Right, because you have that anchor point.
Yes. And I have an even stronger demoralization and hopelessness that I came from after the accident, which when you're in recovery, one of the things they say is if you want to drink or you want to do drugs, play the tape all the way through to what it feels like once you've done it. And I have a stronger visualization of that because of the accident. And I also have a stronger appreciation for God's grace because of the accident. So, for those reasons, I think my recovery would have been even more fragile without the accident.
That makes sense. I could see that. Because yeah, when you can, like you said, when you can play that all the way through, you go, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to that.
Well, and, I don't know how it is for everyone, but alcohol's been my solution pretty much since I can recall. And there are times when, to this day, I the first thing I notice when I walk in someone's house, what alcohol's there. First thing I notice when I open a refrigerator, what alcohol is in there. Um, when I'm in a grocery store, I avoid the alcohol line. Um, you know, it's still to this day something that nags in the back of my mind. And literally, thank God that I have the contrast of that accident to help me be strong enough to not gravitate towards the alcohol.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, when you think about, I don't know, it came up for me that when you were talking about what happened to you as a child, and, from my calculation, it wasn't long after that you started drinking. So I'm
Wh-
guessing that, so many of those things, again, your miracles, I mean, that's probably one of the reasons you drank, I would assume, and it
Yes.
covered up that pain. And then, but you had to get sober to find yourself enough to even be angry with your parents about what happened, that had you not gotten sober, you, I don't, I don't know how you would have healed that trauma.
I'm probably not sober because of the trauma.
Exactly. So it's all just so tied up in each other.
One night, my dad at the dinner table said, "You know, not everyone has to crash their car to learn their lesson. I wish maybe you could have had a different life had you learned that lesson before then." And I said, "Dad, I might have been dead. had I
Yeah.
not had alcohol to numb myself.
Yeah.
And that is the truth of it. I had pain that I was not willing to recognize. And if I did not drink myself through that pain, I very well could have killed myself with my own hand on purpose. And his face was like, whoa, like that didn't even dawn on him. And I said, I went to bed for well over 30 years of my life wishing I would not wake up.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of pain to deal with. And it's unfortunate. Unfortunate is the only word I have, that so many people don't recognize that or don't know what someone else in front of them is going through.
Yes.
What their journey is and what they've had to go through and what they've had to heal or tried to heal, or still need to heal, and especially our parents. We hide that well from them, I think.
Well, and I'll tell you an experience I recently had in the last 2 years. And now I've had this experience several times where I'm sitting talking to my father, and he says, well, Marie, this happened to me when I was a kid. And he blows it off, but he explains it. And yes, he had a similar situation, and he never shared it. And I've heard the story now at least 4 times from him.
Wow.
And he turned to my mom during one of the times he was telling the story to me, and he said, I don't think I've ever told you this. And she goes, yeah, you told me, I knew. And then I shared my story with my dad. I said, I'm pretty sure you don't know this, Dad. And my dad's face, it was obvious he did not know. He
Yeah.
was blown away. And my mom said, I knew Gene, that my dad's name's Gene. And I looked at my mom and I said, I know you knew. I told you. And then I looked at my dad and I said, I figured you didn't.
Yeah.
And um but think about that. If I had not healed, then that would not be happening for him. And no wonder I hid it, because my family pathology is you don't talk about it, because my dad didn't talk about it.
Right. And sometimes I wonder if they do that. I mean, as a parent now, are there things I hide or don't talk about because do I not want to appear weak, or do I not want to put that burden on my child, or
Or have you not been that honest with yourself yet?
exactly, where I don't know where it is. And sometimes when I look at it, I'm not really sure. And I have to kind of think about that and go, why am I not sharing that? And kind of
Right.
like you talked about the growing out of a relationship with God as from a child's standpoint to an adult, just like, I mean, my son is almost 20. And so our relationship now is very different. And of course,
Yes.
my relationship with my parents, see, I was pretty young when they both passed. So I didn't get a lot of that adult relationship with them. So that's hard
Right.
for me. And I'm kind of almost getting it with my son, where the way we talk and the things we talk about and the depth of those conversations is very different now than it was, even 5 years ago, when he was a teenager.
Exactly. You are having that relationship with yourself and with your God. And so therefore you have the capacity to have it with him.
Yeah, I didn't
Help.
have that before, you know.
Right.
And he struggles with religion. A lot of it stems from some of the things that happened with us. And of course, at first, it literally broke my heart because all I could think was I failed.
Right.
I haven't properly taught him how to believe in God and how to do those things. And then I had to back up and realize that, well, one part of that is his decision. I've done the best I could to sort of teach him to be a good person, and he
Yeah.
is, and teach him to make good choices, and he does, and things like that. And so now we actually
Truth.
talk very openly about my struggle and this whole spirituality thing versus kind of religion, and where I am with that and what that means. And so we've been able to have conversations that we would not have had if I hadn't
Yeah.
reached this point myself. So
I've always described myself as a truth seeker, um, my whole life. And it was interesting. I keep talking about my dad, but this is fascinating because this is where I learned my religion, and my faith originally is from my father. So that's where, this happens. But so I was talking to my dad, and he was upset because I wasn't following his faith the way he sees fit. And I said, "Dad, you know me to be 100% a truth seeker, right? When I see it, I say it." And he goes, "Yes, I know that about you." And I said, "Okay. And you believe that you're 100% correct about Catholicism?" And he goes, "Yes, I do." I said, "Okay, so you have truth here that you say is absolute truth. You have me, who's an absolute truth seeker. Trust that I will find my way."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I didn't think about that." I said, "Yeah, you're looking at what's not happening, and you're not having faith that it will happen. So if you believe what you say you believe, then let God do his work with me."
Yeah. Because not only having faith in you, but having faith in God that He's still got you. He's still holding you. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, my dad's funny. I'll say things like that, and he's like, "What?" Mind blown. Psh, he doesn't know how to respond all the time.
I love when that happens though. That's the best. It sounds like you still have a great relationship. Well, and I know you do because we've talked about this, but that you have a great relationship with your parents, sort of despite everything that's happened and
Yes.
some of the trials that you guys have been through. You're still very close.
Aware of the anger I'm processing, because as my mom gets older, she is a much more fragile person.
Hmm.
And I think, at 90, if I am as fragile as my mom is, which she really is, she can barely speak. There's a lot of things that she's dealing with, and she cries really easily. She gets very overwhelmed emotionally these days. There's only so much that I need her to process. Most of the work to be done is within this body and this soul, me, myself. So I take care of myself when I'm around her. And if I need to say something, I say it. But I don't feel like the work really needs to be done between us. I think it really needs to be done within me. So I get angry, and and I s- and I allow myself to be mad at her when I need to be. But I also get that it does no good to kind of crush her soul at this point. I mean, overall, she's done a pretty damn good job, and I just she has her lessons to learn, and that's on her. It's not my responsibility to rub her nose in the one thing that I think she did really not well.
Yeah.
So so I have a very good relationship with them, and I do appreciate the fact that I took this long to get angry, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
because my kids have a good relationship with them. They I see the pros and cons of it. So
That's fascinating. And it's almost like you've come to that point of protecting your mom, so to speak. I find it interesting that we reach that point in our lives where I did some of the same things with my mom and my dad that it was almost, what, they just don't need to know that. It's not it's not their burden. It's not anything that I need to trouble them with what they were going through with their health issues and whatnot. So
and I used to definitely protect them at my expense. I do not protect them at my expense anymore. But like we were talking earlier, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, that doesn't mean I don't need to care for them, you know?
right,
I
right.
just 'cause I'm angry doesn't mean I don't care for them. So,
Exactly. That's such a beautiful thing. Your journey is just so amazing to me. And I mean, I know that a lot of us have had traumas and we've had the things to deal with and um just kind of where you've come in your life in really just a short time when you think about it. And I'm always amazed by our similarities, because there are things in our lives that are very parallel. I was molested as a child, different things like that. And, kind of how that was handled with my mom, and she didn't know, but, and you began your journey to sobriety 3 years ago. I think I began my journey around 3 years ago. It's just, I find it fascinating how similar we are, but I'm in awe of your strength and what you've been able to accomplish.
Your body is starting to yell at you. My body did the same thing to me. Things like that really are very similar as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think a lot of us, if we would look at each other with a little more open eyes, we're probably all in very similar boats, or have very similar experiences that we could draw on from each other, and draw on each other's strengths, and, help each other
Yeah.
through it a little better.
You know, um, the analogy or the fable or parable, whatever it is called, of the grain of sand.
Yeah.
We're all but a grain of sand on the beach, but the universe is in all of us, and all of us are unique. Like, it's so wild that that's a miracle how each of us can be completely unique people, but at the same time we're so connected. It's a
Yes.
gorgeous concept. I love it. And it's not an easy logical concept to grasp, because it has nothing to do with logic. It has to do with the beauty of God, I think.
Yeah. And your faith in that, and just kind of knowing that it is, whether you can comprehend it or not.
Yeah.
And it's what makes me feel loved, and feel okay, and feel at peace about the world.
It's almost so beautiful. It's hard to even explain, and my heart just gets so full when I think of how personal the relationship I have with God is, and then how huge the divine is. Like, that is just it's a very touching concept in my mind.
That's a very beautiful thing, and actually that may be a good thing for us to end on today. I know I've kept you for a little while. I really appreciate you being here. I love talking about your journey, and just kind of the growth that you've seen, and where you are in your life right now. And I agree, there's more work to be done.
To be asked to be here, and I really appreciate the fact that you wanted to have the conversation.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so as we end today, Marie, why don't you tell people what's going on with you, and tell them about your podcast? We'll put that in the show notes, of course, but why don't you tell them about it?
My podcast is called My Side of the Street, and I started it because this journey of recovery really had me looking at what I could do to better my life and become more of who I wanted to be, because I can't control what other people do. So it's called My Side of the Street, and it's all the ways in which I'm learning how to be a better person and healing and all of that. And I also own sober living environments. So I run a business called 620, and I named it after my sobriety date, because I knew if I wasn't sober, I would be serving no one. So I named it after my sobriety date, 620, to keep that in the forefront of my mind. And we currently have a women's home in Southern California, and I will give you the link for that too, and we can put that in the show notes.
Awesome. That's so great. So happy for you with all that. I love how well it's going. So thanks again for being here today. And I guess we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and that it helped you in some way. Make sure and like and rate and do all the things for our podcast. And of course, check out the show notes for links or any other important information. If you're looking for guidance in your journey, you can head over to my website, ballyhoobridge.com. There, you can choose a time for a free 30-minute clarity call. In the meantime, don't forget to take care of yourself. Until next time.